Story 1. More than a few years ago, I dated this girl for about 3 months, and we were at my parents' house for New Year's Eve. And she slipped a ring into my pocket throughout the night at some point. Later on, when I was walking her home, I realized I had this ring in my pocket, and asked her if she knew anything about this. And she said she wanted me to propose. I very quickly said no, as we were only 3 months into a relationship. On the first day back from winter break, I found loads of congratulations and weird stuff on my locker. She had told the whole school I proposed and that she was pregnant. On the next day, I broke up with her because obviously none of this was okay. Fast forward 7 months, and I find out the night we broke up, she tried to overdose on her ADHD medicine, and my friend had to call an ambulance to her house at 3 a.m. Later that week, she had tried to pay my pretty techie friend to delete all the nudes that she had sold online in the last few days. We were both underage at the time. After not seeing her for 9 months, she makes an alternative Facebook account to say that she's 2 months pregnant with my phantom baby, and how she likes to sit outside my window and think about me at night. Well, after calling the police and a week of police sitting in the driveway, she starts a rumor that I watch her sleep at night, and her family's caught me on the new security cameras they've installed. Luckily, have not heard a word or any other weird rumors in 7 years. Story number 2. My friend had a female roommate who was a stripper. All the guys in our group thought she was hot, but she gave me such a bad vibe, plus she smoked, which is an instant no from me. One Friday, we decided to hang out at his house, and after a few drinks, we headed downtown. I'm not a heavy drinker, and I'm a big guy, so I've almost never been blackout drunk. Yet, that night, I found myself refused entrance at a nightclub after 5 or 6 beers. My friend's roommate volunteers to drive me home, and I can't stop thanking her for being so nice. I'm steadily getting more drunk, but I notice we're heading towards her apartment, not my house. She convinced me that it was smart to sleep it off on the couch, and then I could drive home the next day. Well, when we get to her apartment, my memories are in 2-second fragments. She helped me into a bed, and she helped remove my shoes. She removed my pants. Even in that condition, I knew that she was trying to do something funny. I tried to push her off and repeatedly said no. To this day, I remember that disgusting cigarette smell on her breath as she forcibly kissed me. I'm 225 pounds, 6'2", yet was never conscious long enough to push her off me or get away from a 100-pound girl. Well, I vaguely remember some of the various things she did to me. None of it was consensual, and I woke up the next day sure it was a nightmare, only to see her next to me, and it was very obvious that she, had her fun with me. The next weeks and months were a whirlwind of worry. Lucky, no pregnancy, no STD. The few friends I told about it were jealous, wishing they could have slept with her. Definitely a double standard there. Story number 3. So, I matched with this cute girl on Tinder. We meet for drinks. The convo went well and I was with her. So, she asked me to walk her to her car, and then there she still proceeded to jump me, making out. I was fine with this, except I hate public display of affection, and there were people in the well-lit parking lot, and I tell her I don't like making out in front of people. So she tells me to get into her car. We go in the back seat and make out some more. This is better, but it's not great. She starts taking off her clothes. I tell her I don't want to have sex with people in earshot 10 feet away. I offer to bring her to my house, but she says no. So I offer to take her to her house. She says no. Now, there's no way she would have known this, but I was attacked in a car, sitting in a parking lot where I was when I was a teenager. So my mind's having flashbacks of that moment, then reminding me that there are people close by, and this conspiracy starts to form that she's trying to get me naked so one of these people can come and easily rob me. I don't know. My rational brain thinks this is a stupid thought, but I can't push the thought out of my mind. Well, I tell her I don't feel comfortable having sex right now. Well, she grabs me anyway through my jeans and says, "You're not even turned on." I tell her, right, because I'm really not comfortable being in this car right now. She now gets offended, probably thinking that I'm not attracted to her, but she tries one more time to convince me to do it with her. When I lightly push her off, she screams, "You're not turned on because your toy's broken." Now people are looking in our direction from the parking lot, and I have a half-naked, angry Brazilian woman yelling at me. This is my nightmare. I try to explain that I don't feel comfortable having sex in a parking lot, in a car. I'm 35, for Christ's sake. She then yells at me to get out of her car. Apparently, I'm the a-hole because I don't want to shack up in her car. So, this isn't so much creepy as it was a double standard. I was attracted to her, but when I said no, it should have been respected. Story number 4. When I was in my early 20s, I was doing some work on a duplex apartment. It was a unit in a complex with several other duplexes. It was a nice spring day, so I had the front door open to get some fresh air. A woman that lived in the complex came to the door and stood just inside, chatting me up. She was flirty, but I didn't think much of it. She eventually asked me what I was doing for lunch, and I said I was skipping lunch, so she asked me to come over and she would make me a sandwich. I thanked her, but I declined it. But let me tell you, she was very persistent, absolutely offering me a sandwich, and she was not taking no for an answer. Pretty soon I realized sandwich was code for sex. I still kept resisting, and it went from being amusing to creepy. Finally, she disappeared for a minute, so I packed up my tools and I hit the road. As I was going down the road, this car pulled up beside me, and it was this lady telling me to pull over. Well, I pretended like I could not see her and just sped up until she was gone. Now my wife and I refer to the quote, "making sandwich" as our code for fun time. On a funny note, I used to get real hungry for sex after more than once, and I made a sandwich because of it. Edit. I should have started with this one. I was 15, and a girl said she was pregnant with my baby. I was still a virgin. Well, that rumor went through the grapevine all the way to my mother's ears. My mom actually made me live with my aunt and uncle that summer because she did not think I could be trusted to be home alone. I've never returned after that. I lived with my aunt and uncle for 4 years, learned a skilled trade, and then moved out on my own. Which is what brings me back to the first story. Story number 5. About 5 years ago, I went to an anime convention cosplaying as a popular character at the time, Victor from Yuri on Ice. And I was probably one of the only men at this particular one dressed as him. A lot of girls asked me for pictures, and while a lot were nice and pleasant, more than a few tried to grab me inappropriately. One even tried to kiss me and seemed mad that I did not like it. I haven't cosplayed since then, and my enjoyment of the series is somewhat ruined because of the experience. At work, I occasionally have customers touch my hair. These are usually older women and get angry when I tell them no or jerk away. A few customers have even groped my butt and hoped I wouldn't say anything. Sometimes it happens right in front of my manager, and they usually just say, "I didn't see anything, bro." I can't help but feel a little bitter. One time, there was a male coworker who did the same to a female coworker, and he was fired on the spot. He got what he deserved, of course, but I can't help but feel a little bitter that I wasn't helped before. Well, I was also abused by an ex and don't like being touched in general, especially by women. The only girl I've dated since then tried to be receptive, but that ended up being a lie. I told her that when we started seeing each other regularly and said she was okay with it. I eventually got to the point where I could trust her enough to touch her, kiss her, cuddle, but sex was off the table for now. I understand people have needs and many relationships are built on physical attraction in addition to emotional, but I thought she was okay with it because she said she was. Eventually, she said, quote, trying to joke, "If you don't duck me one of these days, I'm going to slip something into your drink and have my own fun." I was upset with this, and she starts calling me a baby. Well, she cheated, and yeah, the relationship ended after that. Sorry guys for the rant, I was going through therapy but could not afford it anymore. I'd like to think I'm a little better, but I don't know anymore. Story 6. Hey, I was out at a bar on Saturday night, and a girl whom I was casually acquainted with came up to me to order a bucket of Corona. We had only met like one time before this with mutual friends. There wasn't any flirting or anything like that. We said, "Hey," and she told me she was out with the bachelorette party, and then I said, "Sounds like a hoot of a time. Hope you guys have a blast." 10 minutes later, me and my friends were ready to leave. I went to the bar to close my tab and decided to buy them a bucket of Corona to be nice. It was like $12 for the bucket. Not a big deal. I told the bartender the bucket was for their bachelorette party, paid, and left without saying a word to their table. 3 blocks down the road, I hear some girls calling my name from behind. They had chased me down the street to tell me they didn't want my beers, and that they, quote, weren't going to sleep with me just because I bought them alcohol. Well, I was very confused and could only respond with, "What?" They told me it was sexist of me to buy them beer, and they knew I was just trying to get into their pants. I just decided to turn and walk away, and they followed me literally another 30 seconds or so, yelling at me how much of a jerk I was. Of course, all the onlookers took their side, and I had to avoid fights with 2 random large groups of guys who blindly took their side without even thinking twice. They had literally chased me, harassed me, all because, well, I sent stuff to their table of beers. Not to mention it was on the way out the door without even approaching the table. Story number 7. I'm male, 23 at that point. I worked as a barkeeper, a waiter, in a high-class bar for 2 years, and I have a lot of stories to tell. First, I got out of a really toxic relationship which devastated me. So I hit the gym 5 to 6 times a week. I was pretty shredded, which paid back with the tip I got, especially from 40-plus-year-old women. So there was one which really creeped me out. She's like 38-ish, maybe 40, and she came around early evening with some friends and they had a few cocktails. I had the closing shift, so I started to send my coworkers home around 1 a.m. until I was the only one left with 2 tables to serve. One of the tables was the woman with her friend. They asked me for a cigarette, and I gave her and her friend 1 cigarette, and they invited me to join, so I did. Because, well, it was late shift, and no one gave a darn what we did after 1 a.m. We had a pretty nice conversation, and she started to come on closer. But I didn't care because I was basically used to it at the same time. More mature women tried their shot after a few. I told her that I was very sorry, but not interested at all. She accepted it in the first place, and she said that she was sorry, paid, and left a little embarrassed. Again, I didn't care and haven't spared a thought of the situation. So, I closed the bar for that evening and went to my locker room. There she was, in our back office. She wore a nice dress, which she lifted up a little bit. I basically told her in a nice way to, duck off, and then I told her that I wasn't interested. She ignored me, tried to get closer. Again, I told her to leave and took a step back in the guest room. We had some cameras there, so I tried to get inside of the camera. Maybe a security was still there and saw what was happening. Basically, I knew that I was ducked either way if I don't manage to get in the camera's vision. She pulled some silverish thing, which I identified as a knife in the moment. She looked at me and told me that now I do as she says or it'll end bad for me. Luckily, there was still a security left who called the cops on her. He saw it from the distance. As the cops arrived, her whole personality changed. She started to shiver, told the cops that I was harassing her. The security showed them the videotapes and they arrested her. I never did the closing shift alone again. Never saw her again, and she never came back. Still, that was pretty scary and creepy, and I left the bar a year later. Story number 8. This was pre-COVID. I used to attend conventions cosplaying Bane, Dark Knight Rises. It was far too often that I'd be walking down the hall and someone would just run up and grab my butt, giggle to themselves, and run off into the distance. And unrelated to the above, this might be beyond the scope of creepy, but saying no repeatedly and her doing it anyways. We break up, she takes me to court trying to convince people I'm the threat. Fails, and I go to therapy over the whole situation just to be told by a female therapist that I can't have problems because I'm a straight white male. Later, I find better help, and I'm diagnosed with PTSD. Fast forward a little bit. I started streaming online to help cope with depression and anxiety, gain a little bit of a following, and one particular viewer becomes overly attached. I tell her I'm not looking for any kind of romantic relationship several times. She doesn't take no for an answer and offers to rent a hotel room between us so we can, quote, meet up, and pushes for my real name because, quote, moaning my stream name while playing with herself feels weird. I tell her again that no means no and to stop it. She goes into a rage and tries to gaslight me. I ban/block her for the safety of myself and my community. Don't get out much anymore after that one. That's going to wrap up today's stories. Let me know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily videos.